Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol free wellbeing and transformational coach, and the best selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol-free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I am so pleased you're here, and I hope you've had a wonderful week. I can't believe it was another bank holiday in the UK, and it's been a good week for me. I'll be celebrating 4.5 years alcohol-free on the 9th. I can't believe it's been 4.5 years after what was only going to be a 21-day thing. And we're less than a month away from the Finding Freedom retreat in Bali, which I am beyond excited about. And the women that are joining are so incredible. And I know we're all going to have a life-changing experience. So if you are interested in securing the last spots, feel free to DM me at Thrive Alcohol Free and DM retreat, or email me at dw@thrivealcoholfree.com, because I am offering a very exclusive offer. So if Bali is calling you, then this is your time. And it's going to be an incredible experience. But imagine just waking up in a stunning private villa room in Bali, the soft morning light pouring in, the sound of nature waking up around you. The retreat center is just beautiful, and it's a really intimate space, and they're stunning plants and grounds, and there's a swimming pool, and there's the spa, and you can have a massage, but you can really just be free there, be relaxed. You'll love it. You step outside, coffee in hand, and take that deep breath. No stress, no rush, just pure uninterrupted time for you. And the day begins with gentle morning yoga, stretching out the tension you didn't even realize you were holding. Then a nourishing breakfast with women who just get you. They're here for the same reasons you are, to break free, to expand, to step into something bigger. And throughout the day, you're diving deep. Powerful coaching sessions that crack you wide open, human design sessions that reveal exactly who you were always meant to be. Breath work that moves emotions that you've been holding on to for years. You spend your afternoons exploring. We're doing sacred water healing ceremonies, sound baths, meditative walks through the waterfalls and through lush rice fields, and every experience is designed to bring you back to yourself. And at night, we're going to be laughing, we'll have deep conversations, we'll be doing lots of reflections, and it's a level of connection and clarity that you never knew you needed. So this retreat, it's the turning point, the moment you look back and you say, that's when everything changed. So come along. I'd love to have you there. There's still a spot waiting for you. And if you feel the pull, if you know deep down you're ready for more, this is your sign. So DM retreat and let's have a chat. Okay, so I'm so excited. I'm just buzzing, and I hope you can hear that in my voice. It's going to be incredible. I can't believe we're only a month away. So if you are one of these people who's been hearing me talk about the retreat, I've been talking about it for probably a year, then jump on board. I'd love to have you there. I'd love to meet you in person, and I'd love to give you a big hug. And so for the Finding Freedom Retreat Bali, 5th to the 12th of June, grab your spot. Final spots left, and can't wait to see you there. Okay, so today's guest is Elly Young, and I was on Elly Young's podcast a while ago, Find Myself Free, and she is rewriting the rules around sobriety and women's wellness. She's a certified alcohol-free life coach, a functional nutrition practitioner in training, and a hormone and biohacking enthusiast who helps women stop drinking, not by forcing willpower, but aligning with their biology. As the creator of Stop Drinking with Cycle Syncing, she offers a groundbreaking hormone first approach to behavior change, helping women use their cycles as a built in roadmap to heal from the inside out. Her work is rooted in functional nutrition, gut and hormone healing, and the belief that women deserve to thrive at every age, not be dismissed with it's just your age or this is what happens after 40. She's a passionate guide for women who are ready to take their power back, reclaim their health, and finally feel like themselves without alcohol dulling the magic. Oh, and she's also a proud mum of two tween boys who she spends her weekends with at soccer and football fields, bringing both science and heart to everything she does. So I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. We have a great conversation, and I know it's extremely important. Everything she's talking about is really key, especially if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s. And so, without further ado, here is the conversation with Elly. So, welcome, Elly. Thank you so much for being on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on Dupe. It's a privilege to be here.
Oh, it's so wonderful to see you again. Because the people that might not know, I was on your podcast, which was fantastic. And so it's wonderful to have you on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. The people that might not know you, why don't we
Sure.
just do a bit of an introduction and then we can go from there?
Sure. So I'm a certified alcohol-free life coach and a functional nutrition practitioner in training. So I'm almost through all of my schooling for that. And then I call myself also a hormone and biohacker. I'm self-taught in that space, but it's really what I'm passionate about is marrying this whole journey of breaking up with alcohol, healing our bodies with food, and balancing our hormones in this lovely stage of being in our 40s, perimenopause and menopause. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I think the mix of all those things, nutrition is so key, especially in the early days of ditching drinking.
Right.
And then, as you talk about in terms of, we'll get onto it, the monthly cycles and the impact that has, depending on what time of the month it is, etc., that does impact. And then, of course, what a lot of women don't appreciate is that a lot of people turn to alcohol during perimenopause, menopause to feel like their symptoms are reducing. What they don't realize is that alcohol is exacerbating all of the issues potentially. And
Yeah.
sometimes you can't differentiate. And when people take out alcohol in this season of life, a lot of those symptoms disappear. So the fact that
Right.
you're combining all three is really exciting. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be really excited to talk about that as we go through the
Yeah.
episode. But this is the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. So why don't we start with what helped you become alcohol free? What made you become alcohol free? What is your
Sure.
alcohol free story and journey? I'd love to hear.
Yeah. Well, where I've landed really is just the culmination of my own personal journey. I gave up alcohol just before my 40th birthday. And so things were changing for me hormonally, but I didn't quite have a grasp of it. I know more about my hormones than I ever have in my entire life. And it's ironic that I'm learning about them like as they're slowly fading out of my body. But I was 39. I was coming out of the pandemic after homeschooling my two boys. And I honestly had just pickled myself. I was drinking to get through, as most moms did, to kind of survive that phase. I had a third grader and a kindergartner at the time, two boys. One of them was undiagnosed with ADHD, my older one. And we were really struggling together as a family, me trying to help him and not understanding what he needed at the time. And I was just drinking to cope through that. It was my way of self-medicating because I felt like I was failing him. And I only committed to a dry January that year of 2021, mostly for superficial reasons. I had gained weight, I felt bloated, I didn't like myself, and I really didn't ever intend to stop forever. And I didn't. I failed. I failed that first dry January. I have a list. I think I would make it to the weekend, and then I would be like, "You've made it so far. You can have a couple drinks this weekend." But even then, I was still getting hungover. I was making so many negotiations in my brain through the moderation jumping jacks that we do, and I was still miserable. I just felt this constant tug of war in my brain. And I was like, why is this so hard? I was a highly disciplined person in all these other areas of my life, and I couldn't get through this. This was so challenging for me. And so it wasn't until February of that year that I decided to keep going. And at that point, someone gave me This Naked Mind by Annie Grace. And that's the coaching program that I'm now certified in. And to be honest, that book and Quit Like a Woman by Holly Whitaker, reading those kind of both in tandem while I would take these long walks with my dog, it was like a light was switched for me. And I honestly never drank again after that February. Again, not my intention, but because I started to unwind those subconscious beliefs that had me believing I needed alcohol for a myriad of reasons, it really wasn't until I unlocked that and made that switch that I was like, I don't ever want to drink this stuff again. And not that it was easy after that, it was still a struggle trying to navigate my life in this just kind of awkward motion. But I started feeling so much better. The way I was showing up for my family was so much better. My relationship with my son, I was able to finally get him the help he needed because I was no longer internalizing it like it was my fault that this wasn't working. And I couldn't have had that type of clarity had I still been drinking and, self-medicating in that way. So that's kind of the long and short of it. And from there, it was just exponential growth. That's sure a lot of your listeners have heard you talk about. Like, it's the biggest unlock that women can have in their 40s is to cut alcohol because everything that we complain about in our health, literally everything, your weight, your mental health, your mood, your energy levels, like everything can improve just by this one little block of removing the alcohol. And then all our other efforts start to stack up, and it's just amazing from there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And thank you for sharing. It's amazing how much pressure we put on ourselves, isn't it? I was thinking about your son, and when we're drinking, everything also seems like 10 times worse. And we can't really see the wood for the trees sometimes. And we get into our heads and we get more and more anxious, paranoid, not knowing that that's what alcohol's exacerbating. And we
Right,
think that alcohol's helping it, but we're actually pouring fuel
right.
onto the fire. And so I completely get that. It made me chuckle when you talked about your dry January experience, because that was my experience every time I tried to do a dry January or Lent. I'd
Yep.
get to the weekend, I've been like, oh, I've done so well. But then to say, I'm going to have to repeat it because it was so good. The biggest unlock that people can have in their 40s, it absolutely is the key, isn't it? It
Yep.
really, truly is. And I sometimes think, am I exaggerating too much? Is this real? But so many of my clients have experienced it. So many of my friends have experienced this, that it's not a coincidence that when you stop drinking,
Yeah.
everything falls into place. Everything feels a lot easier. When you're drinking, you don't want to get up and go to the gym or go for a run or whatever. You want to just curl up and go back to sleep. When you're drinking, you don't feel like you want to grow or learn, as you said. You don't want to read, and you'd rather do something else. And so it absolutely is the biggest unlock.
Yeah.
So, how did you stop? And you said obviously through listening to those two Quit Lit books, but then what's kept you on that journey?
Yeah, I know I'm unique in that. And there are people that have that spontaneous sobriety, but it wasn't without repetition of that belief work that I learned in This Naked Mind. And after that, I was very lucky to have close friends that were also on their own alcohol-free journeys. It's so crazy. We all used to run together and we would do half marathons together. Actually, for Mother's Day, we would go and do a big half marathon for Mother's Day, and then we would recover by drinking wine and going wine tasting. And it was some of the worst hangovers I literally ever had because
Yeah.
we didn't recover. We had like maybe a little thing of electrolytes and like a big brunch, and then it was like hit the winery. And that same group of women, there was five of us. Four are now alcohol free. And we
Wow.
all stopped at slightly different times for slightly different reasons, but because we had that community and we would still go run together, And one by one, we started sharing. And I highly recommend exercising with other women as a way to, it's bonding, but also there's something rhythmic and actually it's a psychological thing. When your eyes are moving back and forth, you're more willing to open up and share and talk. And I spent more time with these women than I would ever spend with people going out and getting together. It was a consistent date that we could have on our calendar in the morning before anything else got in the way and sharing our struggles. And it was sloppy, it was a messy journey. But I was so grateful to have that. And I know other people can find that in the form of communities online. But if you can be brave enough to share what you're doing with someone close to you and enroll them in your possibility of how much you want to change this, you would be so surprised how many people would open up. I've yet never talked to somebody who's like, I wish I drank more, actually. I wish I would have had another one last night. Nobody says that. They all wish they were trying to, they're all trying to drink less, whether they voice it or not. Because we know
Mm,
at the end of the day, we're not dum-dums. It doesn't feel good. We're just attached to it in all these ways, whether you are in some ways physically addicted, but in most of the time, it's just an emotional addiction. It's a
mm,
societal addiction. It's habitual in a way that is like you're just so out of practice not drinking,
mm,
you know?
mm. Yeah, yeah. How you've highlighted it as an emotional addiction, you also talked earlier about it was the one thing that you couldn't really, I don't use the word control, but it was the one thing that you knew you were pretty disciplined. That was what you said. You were pretty
Yeah.
disciplined in most areas. And actually, this was the one thing you can, and the number of women that I coach that they say, I just feel like I'm in control in every single area of my life.
Yeah.
But with alcohol, it's something that I feel like I can't control. And you're
I
right, it's
think,
absolutely the habit, the
yeah.
society habit, conditioning,
Yeah.
etc.
I think that's the biggest evidence that alcohol is an addictive substance, is that you can
Mm,
have these overachieving, highly successful,
yeah.
really in control, disciplined people who can't seem to figure this out. And that is just the nature. That should remove all guilt and all shame from the conversation because it's like any human brain can become addicted. And I know some people that word is triggering, so I prefer the word dependent on a
Mm,
substance, given the right volume, the right frequency, the right cultural conditioning. And
mm,
we have been just sold this illusion that it's safe, benign, the way to bond. All of these things we're told without any of the negative side. And I think if anything, my purpose now out here, and I think more than anything, I want to shape the younger generations who haven't really been brainwashed as much as we have because they have an
mm,
opportunity to do it differently than us. They have an
mm,
opportunity to have, we can fill them with just as many messages that counter the glamorization, the glossed over. It's
mm,
the elixir of life. We have this opportunity to be like, but is it though? And not to
mm,
demonize it, but to be like, let's talk about what it really does to your brain and to your body. And then you can
yeah.
go in eyes wide open and you can have a choice. Because most people, when they learn this information about what it does to your hormone health, and that's why women in their 40s are so primed to make this change because you're like, whoa, this has gone off the rails. What is happening? And you're like, hey, it's over here. It's that
Mm,
nightly glass of wine, you know?
mm,
You're so much more motivated in this phase of life because everything's changing. So you have this drive now to be like, I want to have my health back in my own control. And there is this huge thing that you can just unlock. And there it is.
yeah.
Everything starts falling back into place again.
Yeah, I saw a fabulous advert in the airport when on one of my travels, and it said midlife crisis or midlife opportunity.
Mm,
And that's exactly what we're doing here. It's a
yeah,
midlife opportunity. It's a time to reset, to really think about what is it that I want now,
yeah,
and how can I make it easier for me? How can I go through this stage in a
yeah,
less resistant, less painful way that really encourages me to see that life
yeah.
is just starting. We're not at the end of our lives. We're not, you go through menopause and that's it. We've got a
Right.
whole life to go through,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people sort of think, well, this is just the status quo, this is the norm. As long as I drink responsibly, then I'm fine. And it's fascinating to me. I really believe it's a midlife opportunity.
Yeah, I love it. And doesn't it just keep getting better? I mean, you're similar. I'm 4.5-ish years out. Where are you?
Yeah, same, 4.5. It's
Yeah.
4.5 years on the 9th of May. So yeah, that's 4.5 years
Yeah.
for me, which is
And
amazing.
and it does just keep getting better. You just keep leveling up. And
Yeah.
there's still just these moments where I'm like, I am so glad I'm not drinking through this because life is still going to throw you curveballs and there's still going to be difficult moments. But to think that I could have been like also poisoning myself through it under the
Mm.
guise that it was helping me relax or helping me cope. And it's like, wow. And so it is a difficult position to sit back as a coach and watch people in your community, watch friends who are struggling, and to not be like, oh, I just want to tell you if you could just make this shift. And I know how hard it is, but it's really the best kept secret for women in their 40s to get everything back that they think they're missing now.
Absolutely, I can agree more. It's the best kept secret. I agree. So maybe let's move on because you've done so much since, which is
Yeah.
incredible. You said that you have obviously trained. So This Naked Mind had a huge impact. And there have been a few people who've been on the podcast who are also This Naked Mind coaches.
Yeah.
And they literally started by reading the book and
Yep.
then felt like it was a calling for them to go on to that. And then you obviously said that you were training in functional nutrition as well, and then the biohacking and the hormones. So, how have you gone from stopping drinking for nearly
Yeah.
4.5 years ago to
Yeah.
now and where you are? I'd love to hear a bit about that story.
Sure. So yeah, I'm a geek at heart. I really love science. I love to learn. And I think wanting to understand how someone like me or anybody could become so hooked in the alcohol cycle, that was really interesting to me to unwind that and to change in the way that I did. The capacity for humans to change in your 40s is, to me, it's profound, and it creates such a powerful like moment of like, whoa, I can do anything now. I can truly do anything. And so wanting to understand the science of that, but at the same time being like, I'm still in my 40s, things are changing. So I really went down the rabbit hole of hormone balancing and cycle syncing. So I could really understand, like I said, I didn't learn any of this in my teen years. I went through having babies that I only vaguely knew when I was ovulating. And my period was always like a surprise every month. I was like, oh, that's why I was so off this last week and raging on people. And so I wanted to understand that. And what was the coolest thing to learn is that nutrition is literally the simplest way to start tweaking things and balancing your hormones. Alcohol, unfortunately, was destroying all of this. A lot of people want to start hormone balancing with me and get into that. And I'm like, we really can't do it unless we remove the alcohol first, because your alcohol is going to be disrupting your sleep so significantly, raising your cortisol. And cortisol sits at the top of the hormone hierarchy. Your blood sugar, insulin, that's the other hormone, and cortisol sit at the top. So, how you're eating and your stress levels, which are being impacted by your sleep, are going to downstream affect your sex hormones, your estrogen, your progesterone. So, a lot of women are like, something's wrong with my hormones. I want to get into that. And it's like, well, we got to go upstream and work on that stuff first. And that can be a big unlock for people to understand that, like, wow, that nightly glass of wine is really just this trickle down effect for you. And sometimes just removing that, their sleep's going to improve, their periods are going to become more regular, their PMS is going to lessen. And that type of feedback that you can get with 1 month of removing alcohol and starting to tune in to what your hormones actually need is like, wow, it's a game changer. And so cycle syncing is starting to understand the four phases of your cycle, that your hormones are doing different things in each of these different phases, and that they need to be supported differently. And that might seem like extra to people, like, oh, girl, I can barely get dinner on the table. You want me to like think about how I can balance my hormones with this meal? And I'm like, it seems like extra, but it's actually really intuitive and it works with your body. So the days of the month when you actually feel like you could diet a little more, maybe have less carbohydrate, maybe push yourself a little more physically, that lines up with when your estrogen is starting to rise. In the back half of your cycle, when progesterone is peaking, That needs more nourishment in the form of carbohydrates. That needs more rest. That needs more inner work time. And so once you start to kind of, and there's 4 phases, there's a little more nuance to it. But again, as you start to learn it, you're like, oh, this works with me. I can do anything for this 5 day window, and so you're not feeling like you're going against your body. It's like, hey, eat low carb until the end of time. Never enjoy carbohydrates again. Or let's do intermittent fasting and let's do it every day. And it's like, no, that backfires on your body. And so understanding this, again, it's like zooming out and looking at our month as a whole and going, okay, these are the weeks when I need this, these are the weeks when I need that. And the cool layer that I've started adding on for people is how do we add cycle syncing to the challenge of stopping drinking? And paying attention to that, because trying to take on this massive challenge of this huge habit we have of drinking, the cultural impact, all the things that are working against us, right? And not paying attention to our hormonal roadmap, it's like setting sail on this journey without checking the weather. And you're sailing directly into a storm and you didn't pack any supplies and you don't have any staff on board to help you out. And you're like, wait a minute, what am I doing? And you wonder why some weeks I'm extra motivated and other weeks the wheels fall off the bus and I can't stick to what I thought. So again, paying attention to your hormones is this map that's going to say, okay, we know now which weeks are going to be the hardest. How do we proactively support ourselves with nutrition, with self-care, so that we don't put ourselves in this place where self-medicating with alcohol is the only answer?
Mm-hmm. And so why don't we take one of those weeks when you're feeling unmotivated and you're feeling like it's all a bit too much? What do you
Yeah.
suggest? What maybe the 3 things that you'd suggest?
Yeah. Well, again, it's being proactive. It's not just waking up in your late luteal phase, which is about 8 days before your period starts, and being like, well, I feel like crap and I've got a full work day ahead of me. I committed to all these events this night. I didn't order any groceries and I've got nothing in the fridge. And so you're not teeing yourself up for success. So, yeah, there is work to this, but there is intention. And so I help my clients set up a month in advance. We look at the whole calendar. We go, okay, in this late luteal phase, what sort of events do you have coming up? Is there something you can say no to? We don't have to say yes to all these things. Are there work events that you can reschedule for a time that's a little bit better for you? Are there kids marathon sport weekends where you can maybe tag team dad or another family member to go in your place so you don't have to? There's all sorts of things. And then I love a good online grocery order. I love a meal delivery kit that you can cycle sync. So again, it's really just zooming out, getting really proactive and going, okay, this is how I need to be supported nutritionally. And during that phase, you gotta love nature's carbohydrates. This isn't permission to eat pizza and French fries because you're gonna feel like crap if you do that. But sweet potatoes are a girl's best friend, and there's so many different kinds. Anytime I'm craving like chips and salty kind of snacks in that phase, you actually crave more carbohydrate because progesterone needs glucose in order to thrive. A lot of times, if people are suffering from PMS, it's because we have too much estrogen and not enough progesterone. And that can happen if you're trying to diet and you're not giving yourself enough calories during this phase, you're not eating enough carbohydrate. It could happen from stress, which also can come from dieting too much, pushing yourself too much physically. It can also just happen naturally from perimenopause. We're not making enough progesterone anymore. Or it could happen, last way, is having too much estrogen, which could be coming in through the form of different toxins. Endocrine disruptors, those are having a big moment right now. They're coming in the plastics, the pesticides, the water, the fragrances. So all of these things could be raising your estrogen so that you are now estrogen dominant in that phase of your cycle, which creates the PMS that we're all so familiar with, right? Paying attention to this kind of stuff, and you work on these things one by one so it's not so overwhelming. But when you start zooming in on your hormonal needs, all of a sudden things start to click and starts to make sense. And you're like, I don't need to shame myself for feeling this way. I understand this is what's happening biologically for me right now and how I can support myself.
Yeah, yeah, amazing, amazing. And so, why don't you tell us a bit about how you help people do this? Because it sounds fascinating. And I know you've got a program that's evergreen, so you can join whenever you like, but tell us about the program.
Yeah, it's very literal. It's called Stop Drinking with Cycle Syncing because I wanted people to know exactly what it is. It's kind of a two-in-one. It's teaching you how to stop drinking, but through the lens of your hormonal needs. So we're not just blindly going into this and going, hit it hard, quit, stop drinking right now. It's like, no, we're actually going to look at when is the best window hormonally for you to actually start this journey. The first half of your cycle is relatively a good phase when the hormones are low. So starting actually during menstruation or during your follicular phase. So any time between days 1 through 10 is like a great phase to start your journey because the hormones aren't going to be fluctuating as much where they might change your motivation levels, change the way you're craving, change your mood levels as much. The ovulation is a really interesting phase because a lot of people feel pretty good during ovulation. Questionable once you get into perimenopause, but for a lot of people that all of your hormones are peaking during ovulation and you can feel boost in mood, boost in energy. What this actually does though is when estrogen's peaking, it makes you more sensitive to dopamine. And so what they found, studies show is that women are more likely to overdrink during this phase than any other phase because the heightened dopamine receptivity makes the high from alcohol even higher, which makes you crave even more. So it's much harder to moderate. I call this like this is the estrogen party bus. Like when this phase of your cycle rolls around is when you kind of get that like itch. Like I'm not drinking to like self-medicate during this phase. I'm drinking because I want to party. I'm excited, I'm happy, I want to socialize. And so that phase, it feels more benign to people like, oh, I'm just drinking to have fun. You only live once, right? Let's go out and have a good time. And it's like, if I could go back in time and look at like all the bad decisions I made, I wonder if I was ovulating. Was it like, what was estrogen doing? She was making you crave, she was making you go out and seek this pleasure. It makes sense biologically too, because what this phase is designed for is to procreate, right? So we are designed to be more receptive to pleasure during this phase. So you're like, oh, that makes sense. But I'm seeking pleasure in the form of alcohol right now. So again, these little unlocks, you're like, huh. So we look at ovulation and we go, this is a vulnerable moment. How can we replace that dopamine seeking with other things, what I call dopamine stacking, where we try things that hit on all five senses? The other phase, of course, that we've talked about a little bit here is the late luteal phase. And that is not the ideal time to start your journey, especially if you're really in that kind of tug of war place with alcohol and you're really struggling to string together a few days in a row of not drinking. Don't start during this phase. Instead, get really curious about your why you want to stop drinking, and also just start looking ahead at the month. How are we going to, we're going to plan your day one when you start your cycle in menstruation phase. So we don't start during that phase because our hormones could be all over the place. Our mood could be low. We could be looking to self-medicate in a lot of different ways. And so again, we lay this all out. Of course, if you have already stopped drinking, I don't say, hey, okay, go back to drinking during this phase. But again, this is just a really cool way, a tool to look at this journey and go, I'm not just focusing on what I'm giving up. I'm leaning into methods that are designed to support me hormonally. And ultimately, it's going to put me in a place where I feel better. So I don't need to lean on alcohol to take care of me as much.
I love it. It sounds fabulous. And so, what do people get by joining this program? How does it work?
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's an online platform that has a bunch of little bite-sized videos. I know people don't have time. I know people sign up for courses and they don't do them because it's like, oh, it's a 30-minute video. I just signed up for something and I'm like, the videos are 30 minutes long. And I'm like, okay, how many hours is this going to take me to get through this? And I want the content, but I don't have the time to digest it. So I made these videos like short and sweet to pack a punch that you could like listen in the car when you're picking up your kids, walking your dog, folding the laundry. And they are the lessons about what your hormones are doing. And inside the course, I have a bunch of, I love tools. And this is a tool that you get. It's a cycle syncing calendar. And I teach you how to color code your weeks. And you could have an app. I love period tracking apps. But the thing is, having to pull out your phone for one more thing and probably getting distracted and winding up on Instagram instead, I don't want that. I like to have a physical calendar and I like the ritual of printing this at the start of your month, highlighting your month, putting in the phases so you can see it. You can put it on your fridge and you're like, I'm in my follicular phase. What do I need during that phase? And what I also give everyone is just this awesome little cheat sheet that kind of tells people what phase you're in, what are the main focuses. And so it's like, am I eating low carbohydrate? What are some key foods that are going to help me boost estrogen, or more importantly, help you detox estrogen so you don't have estrogen dominance? So I really try to make these things super practical. And I have put these to the test. I know what works because I've been doing this for about 3 years now, the cycle syncing. I know what doesn't work, which is like long recipes and things that require you to buy a bunch of obscure ingredients. So I also have inside the course per phase meal guide. So when you're in your menstrual phase, you open it up and you print it out, and you've got an entire grocery list of what you should be stocking your groceries with, a couple different recipes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just quick, easy ones. And they are kid friendly, because that's the other feedback I get is like, I would love to cook this way for myself, but I want to also make sure my kids are going to eat it. My husband's going to eat it. So I have these modifications that it's like, throw in these things to make it like kid approved, right? So I put that together for everybody. And then on top of all the cycle syncing stuff, we have a bunch of mindset work around the alcohol. And these, again, are their little tiny videos that you never know which one is going to land, that's going to plant that seed. And again, these are lessons that I have derived from my training at This Naked Mind, because these are the things that will shift you from believing that you need alcohol to relax, to connect, to bring you joy. It's the little switch. And sometimes you have to hear them on repetition. You have to hear it at a different phase of your cycle, when you're more open and you're more receptive and you're not spiraling about a million different things in your life. So this stuff, it works when you stay at it. And if you know the right phase of your cycle, when you're going to be the most receptive to this type of change and you're going to be the more motivated, all of a sudden you're like, I have a leg up. I can do this.
It sounds amazing, absolutely amazing. And I think everyone needs to do this. It's so important to understand all those things. And for me, I talk a lot about the nutrition side. I also talk about the perimenopause side. But the way you've created all of this into one 30-day thing for people who are just getting started. And I'd never like to say giving up, because I think you're not giving anything up, you're only gaining. So I try to use different language like ditch drinking or maybe quitting drinking, but giving up isn't a thing. So anyone who's listening to this, you're not giving up anything, you're gaining, but doing this alongside something like this to set you up for success is incredible. And I think what you've pulled together is brilliant. So how do people get in touch with you and find out more?
Sure. Yeah. My website is findmyselffree.com. And the program is called Stop Drinking with Cycle Syncing. And I would also like to add that I know when I first gave up alcohol, I had so many intense cravings to try and fill that void. And I leaned on lots of bad food, to be honest. I ate all the bad things for a year because it was like, I'm already doing this really hard thing of giving up alcohol. I'm going to enjoy the pizza. I'm going to enjoy the French fries, the ice cream, all this. And that for a year was like, okay, girl, we got to reel it in. We got to reel it back in. And so I understand the void and the cravings that you're going to feel. So focusing on functional nutrition in a way that, like, not only am I going to give myself what I need to feel my best, but it's ideally supporting my hormones right now. That is like the switch. That is like, oh my gosh, that's when your health and your healing just skyrocket. It's the best thing. Sorry, I just wanted to add that little piece there because I know we're all in craving mode. I carried a bag of licorice around in my purse for like the first year of sobriety too.
It's amazing how much sugar cravings we get. That's the
Mm-hmm.
other thing. You sort of get rid of the alcohol and then your craving for sugar really increases. So again, finding alternatives to that, things like medjool dates and just eating proper protein-based meals, 3 meals a day, keeping your sugar levels at a certain level is
Yeah.
really important. Otherwise, you are constantly just like, I
Yeah.
need sugar, I need something else. And you're basically swapping one thing for another. And
Yeah.
so I think doing this course with you, this 30 days, is an incredible tool that you're offering. Great.
Thank you.
So people can find you. Is there anything else that you want to
Yeah.
leave the listener with?
Yeah, well, I also have a podcast. You said at the top of the show that you've been a guest on my podcast. So I love to have guests on and I talk about hormone balancing and functional nutrition. That's also called Find Myself Free. So you can find me there. And thank you so much for allowing me the time here. It's my mission to help women change this decade of their life and come from a place of feeling much more empowered in their health.
Wonderful. And can I ask, how did you come up with the name? Find Myself Free. It's a cool name.
Oh, it's kind of funny. Part of my journey was a creative outlet. I got into tie dyeing and I tie dyed like crazy. That was like a pandemic thing, but mine carried into sobriety as just something for me to do. I would listen to podcasts, quit lit books, and I would tie dye. And I started a little side hustle and I called it free because I was feeling free from alcohol, free from anxiety, free from this burden that had followed me for so long. And so
Mm.
that snowballed into Find Myself Free became my business. And it's truly
Wow.
like how I feel now that I'm alcohol free.
Yeah, amazing. I love it. I love the name. It's fantastic. And it gives so much hope and joy with it, really. Find Myself
Mm.
Free, because that's exactly what it does. And so, probably a good segue into the question that I ask all my guests. What does
Yeah.
thriving alcohol free mean to you, Ellie?
Yeah. I thought about this a lot because I've used thrive a lot in my own business. And it is truly the word that really makes you feel like it's thriving. And for me, it's living in alignment mentally, emotionally, physically, without having to rely on a substance to bring me joy, to make me feel connected to others, to make me feel like I'm a part of this life. I am so much more present with my family. I am so much more present in my relationships, in my purpose, in my passion in this world. And so it's truly just, I feel like I have learned to access these things without this substance that dragged me down for so long. And that's freedom and that's thriving to me.
Oh, I love that answer. Yeah, that's great. That really is. And it's so good to hear, because I think it's really interesting. We underestimate it, or when you say it, oh, I'm more present or I'm more aligned or whatever, people can just think they're words, right? That
Yeah,
they're just words, but actually it means so much. And when
yeah,
you've done it and you're in it, you fully
yeah,
get it, and
yeah,
it completely changes your life.
yeah,
So thank you for sharing that. I think that
yeah.
will no doubt inspire the person who's listening. So
Thank you.
any final thing before we call it?
I just want to encourage people that if your first thought when you think about cutting back from alcohol is like resistance and all the things you can't do, you need to shift your mind into this space of thriving, into this connecting with that future self that is in alignment, that has their hormones balanced, that is sleeping. It's shifting your mindset into this, what am I going to get from this? Because it's everything you're after and you're giving up nothing. It's truly like once you make that switch, it's everything you're after. And so don't hold back. What do you have to lose? You just have to take one step and then the next, and then everything starts falling into place.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being such a wonderful guest, Ellie. And we'll speak soon. We said we're going to do an Instagram live at some point, so look out for that. And can't wait to connect again. Thank you for sharing so well.
Thank you, Dupe. It's an honor.
Well, thank you, Ellie. That was such a great conversation, and we touched on so many things. And I believe her program is incredible. So look into it, get in touch with Ellie. And I love what she said about alcohol being the biggest unlock that people can have in their lives. And also the way she described thriving alcohol free as living in alignment physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, without having to rely on a substance and being more present. Just incredible things. And so I hope you enjoyed the conversation. As I said, we have just a couple of spots left on the Finding Freedom retreat in Bali. If it's got your name on it, if you know it's been calling you, if it's something that you really know that you're going to benefit from, you will come back changed. You will be a different person when you get back from Bali. And it's going to be the thing that you say, oh my goodness, that was the catalyst. That's what has led me to where I am 6 months later, a year down the line. By the end of 2025, you will be thriving. You'll be the thriving woman, and you'll bring all the things that you've learned back to your community, back to your family, back to your friends. And I know it's going to be epic. So join me. I'd love to see you there. Grab one of the last spots. As I said, if you are interested and you're keen, DM retreat or join my mailing list and you can get the exclusive offer as well. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review, and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my group coaching program. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.